Hello and welcome to From the Be All End of live Eve of the Season special. I'm Andrew Greaves, alongside me Simon Evans, Paul Woodhouse, Darren Bentley and Chris Borden. Liverpool get things underway on Friday at home to Bournemouth, and then the Clarets away at Tottenham. Simon, I think when the fixtures came out we said it doesn't get much tougher as a start. Spurs perhaps doing Spursy things this week in the Super Cup. Does that give us a chink of light in a door that we may be able to push through?
The fact that they had a game midweek, and a travel and a game, that obviously helps us. I mean, they're going Wednesday to Saturday. I know if they were playing in the Europa League, they'd be going Thursday to Sunday, so it's the same difference, really. But that's a little bit of a shock to their system, isn't it? After pre-season friendlies and so on, having to travel, going to Europe, playing a game like that, losing in a disappointing fashion, I don't think any of that does us any harm.
No, Chris, do you share that sentiment? Is that, Spurs there to be got at opening game of the season?
I think I've seen Roy Keane suggest similar, and I don't. We know what it's like. Going to Spurs is always tough, unless it's 1983 and Billy Hamilton's on the rampage. It's just one of those. They've got some good new signings. They've got an awful lot of injuries. To be fair, that's probably one situation that might benefit us. With Son's left the building and Maddison's looks like he's out for most of the season, etc. But I say they could afford not to give Odegaard a game last night. And as Frank said afterwards, they've shown they can. After what they witnessed last year, which, take the Europa League out of the equation, they were an absolute shambles, Spurs. Yeah. They were a joke. Yeah. But they've gone and taken on who I think, even though Chelsea beat them in the Club World Cup final, I think everyone accepts that PSG are the best side around at the moment, and they've pushed them to the limit, haven't they? So, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a chastening afternoon, but again, not one that we can't. If we're at full tilt and they're not, you never know. But chances of that, a few and far between, you'd imagine.
Yeah, and Daz, I mean, pre-season didn't give us much in the way of kind of clues as to where Scott Parker's going to go with his lineup. There's a lot of kind of splitting squads, a lot of, leaving a lot of players at home to play a scratch game because Sheffield Wednesday pulled out of a, pre-season friendly. I guess we're going into that game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium really completely unaware of what side he's going to be put out and what kind of form that side, that 11's in, aren't we?
He will have an idea what his best 11 is now, and the fact that three of the new lads are available probably helps him. I think, we go into that game with no expectations. If we get something from that game, it's a great story. I don't see it myself. I think Spurs will have too much for us. But you never know. If you're going to, as Simon said, if you're going to catch them, maybe now's the time to catch them. So why not? Give it a go.
Woody, just finally for you, bit of a you're always kind of flitting between the eternal optimist and it's all a load of bollocks. How are we sitting less than 48 hours before that trip to North London?
5-0 incoming, slightly excited, and what's going through my head is that opening day win at Chelsea. So take that as you will. I'm edging my bets. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
it depends if you've still got an Ange hangover, doesn't it? Depends how they've been doing in pre-season.
Yeah, and again, one of the kind of things we'd looked at, I think, when Thomas Frank was appointed Spurs manager, he doesn't start well, does he? I think both at Bromby and at Brentford, I think his first 10 games picks up very few. I think at Brentford he didn't win any of his first 10 games, so maybe we're clinging on to false hope. I don't know. Let's just do a bit of admin from midweek. Carabao Cup draw. We were all, I think, hoping for Blackburn Rovers at home, but they couldn't get past Bradford City at home, so we've ended up with Derby County.
We've got Blackburn Rovers, just last season's team, that have all joined John Eustace at Derby. So.
Yeah. And all the Rovers fans were calling him John Useless, weren't he? That's, but I think this one they call Dishmal, don't they? They call him Valerin Dishmal. So they've got a few choice words there. Woody, I know obviously under Sean Dyche we weren't much of a cup team. we're probably in that group of teams which, probably is ready for a goodish cup run. Is that a help or a hindrance in a Premier League season for a club like ours?
I think when you start off, and especially with the new faces that we're integrating into the side, it's always a good opportunity to be able to blood some of those, isn't it, and see how they perform. I'm pretty sure we'll get 5 minutes out of Mr. Trezor at some point, and it might as well be against Derby, and at least it's a home draw. So I'd like us to go on a little bit of a cup run, at least somewhere.
I'm not sure who had 6 minutes, 6 seconds for the first mention of Marc Trezor, as he pronounced his name, as we saw from the club video. We'll no doubt come back to Marc Trezor, because it's the text message I probably received the most from Burnley fans. Is Trezor playing? Is Trezor in squad? Do you think Trezor will get a game? I have no idea. We'll say it now on this live, but there we go.
I have. He won't be near squad.
We'll get to some of your questions shortly. There we go. The Oracle has spoken. He may finally get his move to Ajax of Amsterdam, but there we go. Just a couple of... Before we do move on, actually, just noticed, Wout Weghorst got 2 goals last weekend for Ajax.
Scored against a label that used to knock out Top of the Pops LPs, didn't it? Telstar.
Telstar, yeah. Definitely. Let's look ahead to the Premier League season then. We've kind of dealt with Spurs. A lot of the questions that we get from the kind of requests that we've put out on Up the Clarets and the various socials and things like that do talk about or ask us directly, do we have enough? Which of the 3 teams that have been promoted have the best chance of survival? I think it's fair to say that pretty much every pundit has us down as finishing 20th. And not a cat in hell's chance really for Sunderland or Leeds as well. Daz, you share that view, don't you? You think that it may be a struggle for the 3 promoted teams, let's say.
Yeah, we were just saying that before we came on air. I think the trend will continue. If anybody's going to book that trend, I suspect it might be Leeds. I think their home form might just be something that helps them. But I just don't see a world in which these 3 all stay up. I really don't. Even if we finish above 2, let's say we finish above Sunderland and Leeds, we've got to finish above another 1. Now, who's that going to be? And I know there's talk of Brentford and there's talk of Bournemouth, there's talk of West Ham, Everton are Premier League down there, but they're strengthening. I just don't see us. These are battle-hardened teams now, and I really don't see us finishing above any of them. And we've shown in the past you can spend 120, 130, 140 million quids at this level, and you go backwards. It's a tough league, and I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and that's the last time we'll see Darren Bentley on this podcast, because there's no room for negativity at all this season, I'm afraid. So,
hey, I'll be cheering us on. I'll be cheering from the Bob Lord stand like everybody else, but I just don't see it happening.
Don't see it happening. Simon, Daz quite rightly mentioned teams have spent, and we did it, spent 100 million plus, and you got absolutely nowhere near really in the past. Is it less about what you spend and more about how you spend it? And how does Burnley's spend this summer in terms of the people they've got through the door compared to, let's say that last Premier League season where we did have, the 6th biggest spend in Europe and it still got us nowhere? Is there a chink of hope there that the players coming in could be giving us a better result come May?
I mean, there's a lot of gambles in there, aren't there? So, you look at it and you think, right, a lot of them we like on paper, but we went through this season, we went up with Company, didn't we? Where we went, that Amdouni, the Swiss Messi, he's gonna set, he's Premier League, he's a World Cup level, he's an international. He's played 12 games for Switzerland. You get excited about signings when they come in. And if you get to a point where you're never excited about signings, we might as well pack in. It's part of the process of being a fan, isn't it? That you get excited, you hope for the best, you think the players coming in are going to make a difference. But in actual fact, we just don't know. So Breuer, we've all taken optimistic stances on Armando Breuer. Is he going to come in and score a dozen goals for us and keep us in the Premier League? It's a big ask. Twanzebe's already struggling with injuries. We've got other players who've got injury records as well. So we don't really know. Big Les looks the part from YouTube. We think he's going to be a great signing, and I like him. He's the right kind of player for us. But we don't know. We'll find out very, very quickly. And probably after the Spurs game, we'll be writing some of them off straight away. But, that's the way it goes as fans. But I like what we've done in the transfer window, but we don't know.
What is Amdouni, by
Chris,
the way?
I mean,
where is Amdouni? We've never heard of him.
Well, we know from Amdouni that he's injured and he's probably going to be out for the season. Obviously, the club have continued the trend of not releasing that detail for whatever reason. We had it last year, of course, with Mike Trezor and his kind of illness, stroke, injury problems. But Chris, I mean, let's put it another way. I'm trying to squeeze some positivity out of one of you buggers. Is the approach to the football the difference this time? Because we know last time that, Vincent Kompany basically was self-preservation and style over, doing what's needed to survive, and Sean Dyche touched on that in the chat we had with him in terms of, there's a way of staying up in the Premier League. Does that pragmatism that we begged Kompany to have during the Premier League season, that we get with Parker, which produces perhaps not the most entertaining football, is that combined with a better on-paper transfer summer? Is that what gives us hope of surviving?
I think the way we're set up has to, give you a better chance, because you're trying to make yourself harder to beat, and we're obviously we only lost two league games last season with this way of thinking. You've got that. Okay, we're talking last week before as if we were going to be playing this like a 4-2-3-1 sort of thing that we played last year. And it looks for all the world now that we're going to do like a 3-4-2-1 really. And again, that I think that makes us harder to beat as well. You've got that sort of security. You've got the three centre backs. Probably one of the wing backs will probably stay at home. Then you've got Cullen, who's sort of natural propensity to try and keep the back door shut, sort of thing. Leslie, who you're hoping is a bit of both worlds, and that he can give us the physicality and to cover box to box. And I just think there's no point going into the season if we don't think that we can finish above at least three sides. I think Leeds strengthened terribly. I mean, they've signed a few players. Again, a lot of players that we don't know a great deal about. So they may have great seasons, they may not. Sunderland have signed an entire new team. But again, with a few players that'll have popped up on Championship Manager and a few that we know very well indeed. But is creating a new team going to keep me up? I don't know. But again, we said this last season about the likes of Southampton back in the day, where they were producing players almost on a conveyor belt. Buy cheap, sell high. Buy cheap, sell high, and ultimately you hit a brick wall. And Bournemouth have had this. Bournemouth have sold 4 of their back 5, and you're not going to replace with the similar caliber of player, and you're having to develop on the job then. I think Bournemouth could be in trouble. I think Brentford are in trouble. Giving a job to Keith Andrews for a start, never mind. Then you sort of factor in Nordegaard and Buemo. Looks like Visser's off as well. I think they're in big trouble, Brentford. I think Wolves are in trouble. I think West Ham are one of them. West Ham, you can toss a coin, can't you? But you've got to think we can finish above 3.
That's the spirit. That's what we want, Chris. That's the spirit. Woody, continue that trend, please. I mean, you've watched us in VR. There must have been enough in computer pixels to suggest we're going to be able to stay up at least on FIFA.
Well, if there's two invisibles from like the opposition every week, I think we've got a fighting chance. A couple of 0-0s incoming, we'll be fine by September. Let's put it this way. I think the business that Scott Parker's done makes sense. The types of players that he brought in are definitely upgrades. I think, as Buzz just said, the system that he looks to be wanting to adapt to is set up to be very, very difficult to beat. And I really don't think he's angling for, Bayern Munich job at end of season. isn't our Scotty. So it's still going to be tremendously hard work. It really is, and it's one of those. It's like it almost feels like if you're still in sight of the third, the third from bottom round about Christmas, you seem to be doing a good job as a promoted side this year. And I genuinely don't know. It's going to be hard work. But like Chris says, there are some other sides who have got far bigger problems than we have, this season.
The biggest problem I think we have is the start to the season. Those first 7 games are brutal. And I know that the flip side of that is if you get through those 7 games, you come through into an easier spell. But we could quite easily be playing catch-up come October. And that's the big worry for me. So we have to start well. If we're going to have any chance, we have to start well. And that means taking points against Liverpool, Man U, Man City, Tottenham, Arsenal. It's a tough ask.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on the start to the season, and I think as a fan, you look for that. I've not got my wall chart sorted this year just yet, but I will be putting together my chart. It served me very well under company, obviously, but there doesn't look to be a run of games where you kind of go, right, that is going to be, that's where we're going to pick the points up. But I wonder whether this season's slightly different because of all the teams that Chris rattled off. I mean, I've predicted that Graham Potter's going to be the first manager to go in a Guardian piece that I did because I think they're going to be banging trouble, really going to be banging trouble alongside your Bournemouths, your Brentford. I just wonder if the last 2 seasons, 2 things really. One, there's been no crap Premier League teams aside from the promoter clubs, and the promoter clubs have almost shot themselves in the foot the last 2 seasons because they've had managers who've been slaves to their philosophy. It cost Russell Martin. I mean, Rangers have already lost the Scottish Premiership title because of Russell Martin's approach to football. You know what I mean? He will be out of a job by Christmas at Ibrox.
He can approach it any way he wants up there. They ain't touching Celtic.
No, but I mean, what is it? 2 draws in their first 2 league games. They are out of the title race in Scotland because they've handed that. I just think with Parker and his rehabilitation, the fact that he's had a couple of bad experiences in the Premier League, I think he approached it different to perhaps any other manager, if you will. We could have had, any of the promoted managers from the last 2 seasons, any of those 6 sides. So, we have got a lot of questions coming in on various channels, so the Clarets, Twitter, and on the live chat as well. Do feel free to stick them in. Simon, you're on the knobs and buttons tonight, so do you want to start feeding us some questions?
Yeah, we've been flooded with questions here. It's great. We had quite a lot come in beforehand, and it's also basically putting them together with the ones that people are sending in live as well. So I've put up a few of the comments as we talk. So but we'll have a look at a few questions. Here's one from Elizabeth on UTC on the message board. Should we stop spending now and just go with what we've got, with one eye on the debt accrual?
Interesting. I mean, Simon, do you want to just... I mean, you were on TalkSport recently on Paul Ross's show talking about PSR and debt accrual. How much of an issue is it if we spend a little bit more this summer? When might we kind of get ourselves into trouble on that, and then we'll throw it out to the rest of the pod squad to see where they think we should be?
It's done over 3 years, isn't it? So you have to basically balance it all over 3 years. Now, there's a load of caveats and complications within that as well, but basically all over 3 years. So, what we're doing... When did we start counting? Daz, do you know this? When did that 3 years start counting? Because we've been out of the league. Does the clock reset again? I'm not sure on that.
It must do if you come up. I mean, it's a rolling 3-year period, isn't it? If you're a team that's in the Premier League, but if you come up, then it must kick in again.
Yeah,
that's why Leicester have sort of thumbed the nose at the rules a little, haven't they? Because they've been up and down in that time.
Yeah,
I'll say no. We don't. We need a striker.
Sorry,
we need a striker. That's what I'd say.
Still need a striker. Still need a striker for Daz. Would you be tempted to stop spending now? I mean, Scott Parker again in his presser today talked about we've got a big squad. We need to move players on. I mean, I was looking at that squad list. There's some players you just completely forget about. You kind of go, Christ, I didn't even realise he was still here. Do you think there's still a couple of places we need to strengthen, and is that to be done now, or is that done in January, do you think?
I mean, I agree with Daz. I still think we need another striker, and we're going to look a little bit sparse in the middle of the park should anything happen in there. Yeah, I still think we need to spend, but we also need to move some folks on. We really do.
Yeah. And just looking at debt accrual there, Chris, I mean, the problem we've got is when I look down that list of players you think maybe prime for a move, your Bensons, your Delquars, your Agai, all of these, you're not getting much back there, are you, in terms of transfer fees if they're going on a permanent, or even if you're shipping them out on loan. All you're doing is freeing up a space on a spreadsheet, aren't you? You're not bringing much in terms of cash there, are you?
Well, it depends. If you sell sort of 10, 3, 4 million pound footballers, every little helps, isn't it? I know the sort of the big six. I mean, they used to sell the squad players for a couple of million here and there. You'd buy an Eagles or a Chadwick or something, but now they're getting 30, 40 million for their squad players, and that's helping their PSR no end, isn't it? But again, without. I mean, I read an article earlier this summer that suggested we didn't have much wriggle room with PSR.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then you got to abide by the rules. And if we can't bring anyone in, we can't bring anyone in. But I'm with the others. We're still a forward line, and I still wonder. I still see Josh Brownhill wandering around, like he looks like he's on holiday, and he's not attached yet. And I just wonder whether there might be a late. Change of opinion there, and he thinks, hang on, I've got no other better offer. I'm going to come back to Burnley, sort of thing.
Interesting. I think we do that with Phil Bardsley. Was Bardsley released and then Bardsley came back? Is that the transfer I'm thinking of? Simon, would you welcome Josh back with open arms, or do you think it's kind of we've 100%. Moved on from that?
No, 100%, 100% into that midfield now. Yeah, absolutely.
Does he start?
I mean, I said at the end of last season, he could have taken the step up this year. He's never proven himself to be that player who can take the step up from the Championship to the Premier League. But I think he showed so much improvement all round in his game. The timing of his runs, the clinical nature of his finishing. I would have loved to have seen him in the Premier League. So if he hasn't got himself fixed up, and who knows what's going on there. I mean, we keep looking at his Instagram stories and seeing him looking very tanned or somewhere on the west coast of the United States, I think in California, working out and so on. You start thinking more and more that it must be an MLS deal that's been held up by paperwork or something, or visas or goodness knows what. But if he hasn't got himself sorted, I'd have him back in a heartbeat. Interesting.
Let's move to a next question, because I'm sure plenty of people in the comments and on the message boards would have a view on Brownhill back to Burnley. Ashton Longsider on Up the Clarets. I'd like the panel to each offer their predict a started 11 for Tottenham. Wow. Despite a good window, my injuries and lack of prep for some make us a little lightweight. So just to give a bit of context to that, we know that Leslie, Ugo Chukwu, Dubravka and Breuer are all ready for selection. They're all at different stages, Scott Parker said. We know we're without a couple, Tuanzebe doubtful, Bashir Humphreys, Jordan Bayer, and obviously Amdouni. What do we think, Daz? What would your starting 11 be? Let's look at that.
The three you've mentioned, they play. If Breuer's not 100%, doesn't matter to me. He plays. Play him for 60 minutes. And then if he's knackered after that, you can bring him off. So you've got to play with him, because I don't think we start with Lyle Foster up front. That's a gimme. I think we've probably got the new guy in midfield, I can never pronounce that name. I never will be able to, despite watching the Sky pronunciations this time, alongside Cullen. I think I'd probably play Hannibal, in that 10 role. I think I'd play Hannibal there. Then I think you've got to go Edwards wide, and I think he will start with Anthony. Anthony's one of his favourites, so I think he'll start with Anthony. And I think he'll play Edwards on the other side. And then, what do we do at the back? That's the question. I think Bayer we know has had a setback, so Bayer's not going to be involved. So he's probably going to go with Ekdal, isn't he? I think in there he's going to go with Walker, obviously in there. That's how I'd line up. I think with the two pushing on from the fullbacks as well.
Yeah, Woody, are you looking at a similar back five, I guess, with the fullbacks that we had against Lazio? So Son at right back, Walker, Ekdal, Steve, and then Hartman, obviously in front of Dubravka. Or are you looking at kind of going 4-4-2 there, Woody?
I think it worked rather well, that first half against Lazio. And there's been a lot of talk about it, and it seems whether it's a plan B, like we were saying before, or whether it's a plan A, we'll soon find out. But I like the look of it. You know, I like the way, you know, we played. I think we might be a little bit weak down the right, but I think a lot of the questions is pretty much, you know, how we're attacking our way as a front three. You know, do you throw Edwards in from the start, or, you know, do you try and shore it up a little bit? And I think he might go a little bit more defensive, a bit like he went against Lazio. But you've always got those folks to bring on, you know, after 60, 70 minutes, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. And Chris, is there any changes to the starting lineup that Daz suggests? I mean, I think Daz's suggestion is probably what I would go with. Would you go similar to that, or have you got a rabbit up your sleeve? That's not the right saying, but have you got a rabbit to pull out the hat?
It's close enough.
I think if he's going with the three centre halves, he'll go with what he went against Lazio. He'll play Hartman on the left, and I think, although there'll be a reticence among some to play Son, given his lack of experience since he arrived with us, as I was saying last week, he's got the protection of Walker behind him, and he's got Hannibal with with the energy of two, slightly in front of him. So I don't think that's as much of a gamble as it might look on paper. I think Ugachukwu plays alongside Cullen ahead of Laurent from last week. And again, to me, it's whether do you let Breuer blow himself out, or do you bring him on with half an hour to go and let Foster do the same. But I'm excited. I'd like to see, as much as my heart thinks he'll veer towards Anthony as a 10 with Hannibal, just for his work rate. But I'd love to see Edwards let loose as a 10, because essentially he's free there. He can roam on the left, he can roam on the right, he can go in behind and cause mayhem. And I think you get him on the ball, between the lines, and hopefully let him fly from anywhere, which he looked a bit reticent to do last week, bizarrely, because he's got quality in that left foot. I'd love to see just gamble slightly and play Edwards.
Interesting. And Simon, let's talk about the bench. I know the question was about the starting 11, but how important is a bench, and a bench with real quality on? And as somebody's just said on the comment that flashed up on screen, the squad is massive. Who do you want to see from that massive squad on the bench to perhaps bring on when, Edwards has run himself into the ground, Hannibal's run himself into the ground, Breuer's run himself into the ground? Who's that kind of fringy player for now who is your go-to man or men for the last 15, 20 if we're still in sight and still in a game?
Well, you can't argue with Koleosho's pace, can you? I mean, if he comes on, I think we've seen enough of him now to know his limitations, but he's still fast, and on a counter attack, if we're in that situation, and we are going to be a lot of the time away from home, where we're defending in numbers and looking to break, and the last 20 minutes we're hanging on to a draw, and then we ping a long ball over the top, and Koleosho runs away like he did at Leeds and buries it. That's exactly what you want from the bench. Chuani, you would think, could maybe offer something similar as well on one of the flanks. I think the wingers are just rotating in and out these days, don't they? I mean, all the teams seem to do that. If you've got those wide players, JBL is another one. Where Edwards and Anthony, maybe they're not getting much joy out of their fullback. You swip them out early in the second half. We've got backup and alternatives there. What we don't have really is that, if Breuer can establish himself as the number 9 and he's fit enough, then, is Fleming then a guy who comes off the bench and plays as a second striker maybe, or goes into that 10 role, or goes as an alternative to Breuer as 9? Mm-hmm. He could be, really effective from the bench if he's not starting. Although I wouldn't be surprised to see him start if he's fit. Apparently he is fit. He wasn't listed amongst those who weren't anyway. And if Breuer's not ready, does he start with Fleming and bring Breuer into it for the first game? I don't know. I tend to agree with Daz. If Breuer's got 60 minutes in him, give him a go. But yeah, we've got those options. And then, someone like Ramsey might start coming into things, just to break things up and offer a bit of different things in midfield. We should have a strong bench. And in the game now with 5 subs, it's a hugely important part of it. There's nothing... our squad is massive, but there's nothing massive about having squads of 28, 30 players anymore. I mean, we're at 40 or something, aren't we? But, it's important to have... you're going to have 3 or 4 players injured, and you want to have 5 really good options from the bench.
Do you know what I like there about Simon's comments there? They're all forward options. There's no parking the bloody bus, is there? He's getting these forwards on, isn't he?
Yeah. And he's probably going to go through 4 wingers a game, isn't he? I mean, you'd think he's going to be one of these. Yeah. Because his wingers work hard, don't they? His wingers do work hard. They're good at tracking back Anthony's good at following his man, which perhaps we did lack. Yeah, Flower Fred said Luca was the only one really testing Lazio. He's a frustrating player, isn't he, Koleosho? But you're right, Simon. I think that kind of, when you're looking for an outlet over the top and you need somebody with legs to start making their defenders think about something as you're hitting 75, 80 minutes, if you're under the cosh and you're trying to give your side a breather, Koleosho probably is the guy to kind of come on there, really. And
that's it. But are we going to play? If he's going to play the back 3, it looks like he's playing 2 10s off a forward with a tight. You've got the two wing backs who are essentially going to be our outlet. And then you're letting 2 10s do the damage. Well, second half, we played almost like a front 4, didn't we, against Lazio? So unless you're chasing, if you're chasing the game, great. But is he going to play players that hug the touchline? I don't know.
No, interesting there. David Hamley there just saying, do we think any homegrown players are going to come through? My gut reaction is, given the fact that most of our better under 21s appear to have either gone out on loan or, in Wesley's case, gone up to Dundee on a permanent, which obviously looks a good move for him. I think he played 60-odd minutes against the aforementioned Russell Martin's Rangers side as Dundee grabbed a draw, despite being favourites for relegation in the Scottish Premier League. Scottish Premiership, I think it's still called. Scousers have just spent 35 million on 18-year-old. How does any promoted team compete? I think we kind of touched on that with how difficult it is. I think the plan is to finish above 3 other teams. I know that sounds like I'm being really kind of facetious, but there are, I think, 3 other teams that we can finish above. Let's have another question. Joe Pattison, 97. Where do Burnley still need to strengthen? I think we touched on that. Obviously, Brownhill's goals. Do we expect Trezor, Ramsey, or someone else in the current squad to play in the Brownhill role? I think we all probably expect it to be Hannibal, do we? I mean, the one thing Hannibal doesn't really have is goals. But is there enough that we've seen from Hannibal back end of last season, Daz, coming into pre-season this season, to think that actually the Premier League and the style of playing the Premier League is completely different to Championship, might suit someone like Hannibal, who can almost be that man who goes beyond the number 10 and pops up in the right area for a cutback?
Potentially, yes, but bigger than that is his energy. His energy levels in that number 10 role will be crucial. And I loved him on the left when he had that little spell on the left, and we touched on Anthony a little bit there. The big question is whether Scott Parker's loyalty to Anthony continues, and I suspect it will, certainly the early part of the season. But to get back to Hannibal as a 10, I think his energy levels in pressing, in being aggressive on the ball with Chukuna behind him, I think that's crucial to us. So I think Hannibal can nail down that role, but I don't see him necessarily as a goal-scoring 10. and he might be the player that runs himself into the ground for 70 minutes, and then we see a Fleming coming on for the last 15, 20 in support of the other striker. So, but to me, he starts in that role, I think, just purely for his energy levels.
Yeah, we'll come on to Foshy Nick's question about ice cream and giraffes in a second.
Yeah.
But Chris, I mean, it's the question everyone's been wanting to ask, to be fair. But just on Hannibal, before we find out our favourite ice cream flavours, does Hannibal's energy in that Brownhill role then unlock other people in that front 3, 4, whatever it's going to be at times, to then perhaps weigh in with collectively the kind of goals that we got from a single player last season?
I see his work rate's prodigious, isn't it? I spoke before about sort of, protecting Son a little as well in that area, but it showed he was. I'm trying to remember. Was it the goal against Norwich? I'm trying to remember who we got in on the end of, and just a nice little slot into the corner. He's got it in him. It's just doing it on a regular basis. His technique is excellent. He's a lovely little technician. He's a great shuttle. He gets you up the pitch. He's pretty rapid. His aggression that we're going to have to sort of keep an eye on occasions. I think he's a shoo-in. He starts every week, man. I think he will. I think he will sort of prosper at this level. He's one of those players that sort of will probably look a better footballer at this level, I think, rather than when I think people are almost targeting him, aren't they, in the Championship, and trying to make him respond. And I think in the Premier League they've got bigger fish to fry, to be honest, than Hannibal.
Yeah, definitely. Go on then. Let's go around and have a quick. What's his favourite ice cream flavour? Woody, you look like a man who enjoys an ice cream on a hot day. What's your favourite ice cream flavour?
I am a fan of Cherry Garcia, and I'm getting hungry again. I am getting a bit peckish. Definitely Cherry Garcia, Ben and Jerry's.
Excellent. Cherry Garcia, Ben and Jerry's. Daz, what about you? What's your go-to?
I'm a sucker for raspberry ripple.
Isn't it for what?
Love a raspberry
ripple. Ice cream?
Or a Mr. Whippy with strawberry sauce.
Raspberry from him, is it?
Oh, classic. Chris, what about you?
Do you know, my favourite ice cream shop is called Frederick's in between Chorley and Adlington, and it's been there 100 odd years, and it's got different flavour.
I know it, yeah.
Every time. And the last time I went, I had fruit salad. Like the old sweets, the old penny sweets.
The Chewies, yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. But they'll have something else next time. Anyone, get yourself to Frederick's. It's the greatest ice cream shop in the world, I tell you.
Again, not a sponsorship, but I do know it. Simon.
If anyone wants to give me any free Fredericks, yeah, but
free Fredericks for life for Chris Borden. Excellent. Simon, what are you having in Miami when it's 60 odd degrees?
It's my favourite is a Miami one. It's dulce de leche with caramel, basically.
It's twat.
Absolutely fantastic. No, it is. It's a deep, rich caramel. Absolutely brilliant.
Excellent.
But it's so rich, you do need a bit of vanilla next to it. You know what I mean? Just to sort of balance your palate a bit.
2 scoops. I love it. I'm a big rum and raisin fan. I love a rum and raisin ice cream.
Oh, hi, yeah.
It's a good rum and raisin.
Yeah.
Good variety there. Good variety.
Yeah.
I will eat any old shit when it comes to ice cream, to be fair.
Of course you will, yeah. Of course
exactly.
you will.
Yeah.
We didn't get on to the would you rather fight alongside a giraffe-sized chicken or a chicken-sized giraffe, but we maybe save that for another live show just to get people coming in.
It's got to be a giraffe-sized chicken, hasn't it? Surely.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Yeah. You'd think
chickens.
so. Yeah.
Alongside hens.
No, chicken
is
a
dickish questions that? It's quite patently obvious. You know what I mean?
A relative of the T-Rex, isn't it? A chicken as well.
Exactly.
So it's got a bit of fighting.
Yeah. Definitely. Let's have another question. Let's try and get back on track. I mean, this is
we're getting lots of Trezor questions.
We're getting a lot of Trezor questions. Is Trezor the surprise player of the season? It'll be a surprise if he plays. Right, let's put Trezor to bed. There we go. We'd love him to. I think the general consensus among the pod squad is we would love to see Mike Trezor. There was a brilliant video of Mike Trezor absolutely rinsing Ekdal and E. Steve individually in training. So if we can get that Trezor, we'd love it. Let's see what else we've got on the old question bank. I'm sure there's another couple of questions that are going to be slightly different to what we've got. A lot of people asking us for predictions and starting 11s and things like that. A lot of people obviously sharing the same concerns as we do around where do the goals come from. But yeah, let's see what else we've got in the question bank. Simon on the knobs and buttons, as we say.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Why has nothing been said?
He's got a furrowed brow. We can't see the question on screen.
Ordering
just
ice cream
yet.
off DoorDash. That's what he's doing.
That's what he's doing, isn't it? Uber Eats.
You can't see it.
I can see it. I can see it, Simon. The question was why the club not said anything about Brownhill, and I tend to agree. It's a funny one, unless, as Simon alludes to, the door is ajar.
Until he joins another football club. I mean, he's not our footballer anymore.
No.
So, like I say, unless there is still the possibility that he may return, why shut the door on it?
Yeah. Do you find that a bit weird as well, Woody? I mean, he obviously captained us to promotion last season, top goal scorer. It seems to be the done thing to put out, we've seen Kieran Trippier and Ben Mee, I think, record videos when they left to join Spurs and Brentford, respectively. Are you slightly surprised that the club haven't done something to at least acknowledge the fact? I mean, we had the kind of... I don't even think we had the kind of Josh Brownhill's exploring options elsewhere like we had with CJ Egan-Riley, did we?
No, there was no kind of saga, was there? Only from fans. There was nothing really... Didn't seem to be anything mentioned, from the club. And he's, like you say, he's just wandered off into the Miami sunset or California sunset or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether there's a, they take it a little bit personally sometimes in the boardroom.
I mean, he's put the statement out, hasn't he? Saying that he's put the statement out, effectively closing the door on Burnley. So, on the back of that, the club could have made a statement, but the fact they haven't is interesting. I agree with the question.
I mean, it's like Goodmanson, isn't it? Go back last year, and Goodmanson's out of the building, and But Brownhill's closed the door, hasn't he? He's put his statements out, and you find it in that situation. Why wouldn't Burnley? But maybe they think there's still the possibility.
Yeah, interesting.
Will Brownhill rock up at Everton? Does is one question. Yeah.
It was someone I was talking to the guys at Everton about, because they were looking for players, and they were openly saying they needed 3 or 4. I think that's probably past now. They've got Grealish in the door. They brought in Dewsbury Hall. Yeah, I think that's gone. But
it's not as good as Townley Hall. Nowhere near as good as Townley Hall, that lad. Scorthorpe Hall, another better hall.
I suspect, though, like Simon says, the fact that he's not got fixed up anywhere, and I think he'd struggle to get a Premier League club because of what happened in the past there. The fact he's not been fixed up at a Championship club, to me, indicates that he's probably heading abroad. And as Simon alludes to, I don't follow the Instagram post, but if he's out there in Miami or wherever it is on the West Coast, then the USA seems like a really good fit for him, I think.
It does, but you just never know. Paul Pogba was out here doing exactly the same as Brownhill for 3 months, and then he signed with a French club. So it's who knows? Agents, what agents can pull off at this stage, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely. James Hart asks, if not Magic Mike, who will be the surprise package? Simon, who's your kind of bet? If we were to kind of say to you, a player who wasn't really in the thinking last year, or maybe is in the thinking last year, but stepping up to the Premier League, who are Burnley fans going to be voting for as their kind of surprise package player of the season come May?
Well, I don't know if he's a surprise package exactly, but what I saw of Hartman against Lazio makes me think, he's the Dutch Andy Wharton, isn't he? He's just powering up and down that left, looks full of aggression. He's got the makings of a cult hero at Burnley, is Hartman, and there's a slightly psycho sort of look about him, isn't there, when you see these things where he might just square up to someone at some stage in this season. So I think he's got everything that Burnley fans like, Hartman. Fast, hard-working, aggressive, and slightly psycho.
Love and hate tattoos on his knuckles.
Woody? Yeah. Woody, would Hartman get you over? I have to say I agree with Simon. I think Hartman is.
Yeah, I do as well.
The player who I think Burnley fans are going to be raving about.
Yeah, he's a damn fine player. Dubravka might surprise us. He may have a very solid season, and we may be, impressed by Walker. We may see just how good a player he actually is over the course of the season, his leadership abilities.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Just
Trezor.
looking ahead then, and Trezor, obviously.
There's been a lot of questions about this, actually, Greavesy.
Yeah.
I don't know, we're not going to get to all the questions, but there's been a lot of people worried about goal scoring. That's the one thing coming through all the comments and stuff that we're seeing tonight is people concerned, are we going to score enough goals? Someone pointing out, Phil Ashton, that Fulham scored 9 at home during Parker's Prem season. I don't know, you can read too much into what Fulham did, but it is a question, isn't it? Have we got goals in this team?
You look at the set pieces last night. Tottenham have scored 2 set pieces against PSG, and the sort of importance of set pieces is sort of coming more to the fore, as it usually does when the big six get hold of these things, isn't it? It becomes a topic. But were we good enough at set pieces last year? I don't think so. We've got a new set piece man in place. Can he make an improvement? Because you've got players there who can bloody attack a football, and we've got certainly got quality from a dead ball situation as well. Again, I'd like to see Marcus Edwards sort of 25 yards from goal in the just outside the D there, just waving his left leg at one. And Hartman again, I think his delivery was decent last week. So
his corners were good.
You got to take full advantage of those situations when they arise, really. Because in open play, are we going to carve teams open? Probably not.
I think, to be fair, bodies in the box will be an issue for us, because the way we're going to set up, we're not going to have bodies flooding into that box. And your centre-backs, are they going to chip in with goals? Possibly not. Is Hannibal questionable? Wide men, possibly. I think there's a lot of onus on Breuer. To score goals. And if that doesn't happen, then I'm worried already. But if that doesn't happen, then I'm really worried we won't score enough goals. That's why we say we need another striker. Because we know Foster's probably not the answer.
I think that brings us on to a question. I think John Robinson asked about Foster. Does anybody? I think the question was something like, "Does anybody have faith in Lyle Foster?" I mean, Woody last Premier League season started well. Obviously, had his mental health break, which kind of stuttered his season. There's a question from John. Have too many fans given up on his potential? He could be underrated. Is there a player there? I mean, Scott Parker, speaking to South African TV this week, talked about him being a brilliant human being with lots of quality. Is that one for the South African TV cameras? Or, Parker seems quite a genuine guy, doesn't he?
Yeah. Of course, there's a player there. It's whether there's a goal scorer there. The point is, we're talking about, is there somebody there who can score goals? We're not necessarily talking about somebody who can drive, from the edge of his own box 30, 40 yards. And I think his hold up players got him slightly better, and I think he'll be a very good option either on the bench, and if he has a good trot, then he will invariably start. It'll probably be between him and Breuer. But you're not expecting. I mean, is he going to get a better return than he had last time he was in the Prem? Probably not. Interesting.
Any other thoughts on Lyle Foster, or as Phil Ashton suggesting, are we looking at a Vardy or a Sargent? Chris,
let's say if if it's the Foster that turned up for the first few games last year, and it's the Foster that turned up at Villa Park, fantastic. I mean, he was magnificent at Villa. He ran them absolutely ragged, but he's not going to. He's applying that. We've seen him now for 2.5 years, and we've not seen that applied consistently at all. We've seen him on the left hand side. We've seen him. He's obviously had his problems, and Burnley. I'd like to think, I'm really pleased with the way they've handled that and they've looked after him. And it'd be absolutely wonderful if they were to now get a return on that sort of investment, not financially, the sort of emotional investment and the way that they've sort of cajoled him, back into shape. I think every Burnley fan would be thrilled to pieces if they saw him, because he's got the attributes. He's aggressive. He's rapid. He can score with his head. He carries the ball. It's just piecing that together on a consistent basis. And you'd have to say, from the evidence we've seen, he can't do that consistently enough.
Yeah. Does that then leave us open? I mean, there's not a huge amount of attacking striker options for a club like us. It's probably a Jamie Vardy on a free, although I noticed from his Instagram he looked to be training at somewhere with the Sunderland logo, or a big payout to get a Sargent, who I think's got 2 in 2 for Norwich. What would your kind of preference be? Are you looking for an old timer who's been there, or a younger championship proven striker?
I think you're looking for somebody who's been there and done it. I mean, Leeds have took a gamble on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. There's a big gamble there because of his fitness over the last few years, and certainly his goal scoring hasn't been on a great par. It's sort of a par with Foster, if you will, in that respect.
So Bamford's got as many, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Bamford
Josh Sargent at Norwich. Josh Sargent, can he make the step up? I'm not too sure. Jamie Vardy, I wouldn't be going near him, to be honest. Jamie Vardy, I fear that one's not for us. I don't know. It's a conundrum, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, you look at someone, the lad at Plymouth who went up to Borough, and he's not scored a goal yet. There's a dearth of quality centre forwards unless you're going to spend 80, 90 million quid. And we're not in that market. So I'm not brave enough to say what the answer is, but I think we need a body. I mean, Fleming could well step up. I like Fleming. Fleming could well step up. And he might be the one that you talked about, surprise package of the season. For me, he could be the one. Because he has got the attributes. He has got a shot on him. He has got aerial ability. I think he could be the surprise package, but whether he will get the opportunity to play in that role to score the number of goals we need, I'm not sure. And if we don't, I don't know where we're looking, but that's where recruitment comes in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Think about Sargent. Sorry, I was just going to say on Sargent, the American journalists who watch him closely, the ones over here who tune into Norwich streams just to watch how he's doing, because he's in contention for a World Cup place with the USA. Their view is that it's time for him to move, that he's proven himself at championship level as a top scorer.
Yeah.
He needs to go on and do something better. And if the Premier League don't offer him, he should go to the Bundesliga or somewhere like that. So the people really rate him. I know there's a bias there. Americans will like American players and so on. But from what I've seen of him, he looks like somebody who'd have a chance of making a go of it in the Premier League. There's no guarantees, though, in the market that we're operating in. Just none, are there? Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Simon, about the American, obviously the American take on Josh Sargent. I'll ask you this question instead before I move on to another name that I'm going to put to a couple of you. Is there a Burnley team where Breuer and Fleming play together, or for you, Simon, is it one or the other? Is there only that one spot up for grabs, and that then probably does stop one of them from perhaps, as Daz says, being given that opportunity?
It depends on what formation he's playing, doesn't it? Because if he plays three centre halves, it makes it very difficult then to play with 2 centre forwards without sacrificing both your wingers, really, doesn't it? So I think if he is going to play that system, and I can see, like Chris, I can see a lot of advantages to playing that way. it's going to be one or the other, I think. But if he switches back to 4-4-2, there is the chance then that he might go with a pair up front, and you could then play Fleming behind Breuer in that gap, which is where, we've said it a million times, everyone says he played at Millwall, and is his natural position, apparently. So, I think at the moment, if we think he is going to start off with, Kyle Walker playing the right side of a three, and two wingers cutting in behind a striker, then it's Fleming or Breuer. But, Breuer obviously has had a poor injury record, and there's every chance that Fleming might get a good run of games at some stage. So, I rate him. I do. I think he showed a lot last season. Yeah. And I'm not sure the way we played last year played into his strengths either. So I'm keen to see him given a chance.
Yeah, Woody, I'm just going to throw a different name at you. Not a striker, but somebody who we talked about a Brownhill replacement. Gustavo Harmer at Sheffield United obviously scored a pretty special goal against Birmingham in the Carabao midweek, but he looks like somebody. I think we were linked with him briefly when he was at Coventry, when we were being linked with a couple of Coventry players. If we're looking for somebody to score goals from midfield with a bit of a proven record of kind of getting goals and good work rate, is he somebody who perhaps in the last knockings of the window you kind of go, hang on a minute, let's see what we can do? I mean, Sheffield United, for the most part, against Birmingham, look to shadow their former self. I think they may struggle to get into that top six this year. Is he kind of, again, that player to unlock other players?
I mean, he's a great player for about 50 minutes, isn't he? And then he starts blowing out of his arse about 60th minute because he's obviously had too much ice cream and far too many pies. So, but he's an extremely good little player. He is, And so, in the same way that I don't think he could have the same impact necessarily as, like, say, Sander Berg did when he came up from the Championship. But I think he could be a very good little addition. To be fair, sponsored by Afners, obviously.
Little being the operative word there.
Yeah, he's a tiny little guy, isn't he? Well, like a barrel, isn't he? He's kind of got my kind of physique, which is absolutely too many pies and ice cream. But,
you wish.
There we go. Reminds me a bit of me at Wednesday night football, I have to say.
Too much rum and raisin, lad. Too much rum and raisin.
Too much rum, exactly. Yeah, far too much rum and raisin. I tell you what, let's leave it there. I think we've got to as many questions as we can. We'll probably do a few more of these lives. I know we've got big plans this summer to. We're putting in some new plans for the new season with kind of some live reaction stuff and some more kind of YouTube shorts. So do make sure you hit the subscribe button. On YouTube, make sure you kind of get all our new videos and pods and everything into your feed. Just wanted to end really just by just acknowledging, because I know the club have been a little bit slack on doing this, but funeral of Willie Irving today as well. So I know his coffin went past the turf on its way to Worcester. So really, just from everyone here at From the Be All End, our thoughts obviously with his wife Rita and his sons Darren, Stephen and Jonathan. I know most of us know at least a couple of the lads, and big Burnley fans. And obviously Willie had a huge career at Burnley, a ridiculous goal scoring record. What we wouldn't give for a Willie Irving-esque player in the Premier League. So yeah, condolences and thoughts with all of the Irving family. We'll be back after the Spurs game. We will be back with some reaction. We may be back on Saturday night, depending on the result. If we get a good result, we may all jump on. But certainly, yeah, we're playing a bit more of a squad game this season. We're trying to kind of split the squad a little bit, so you hear kind of less voices per pod, but we think it flows better, and certainly the kind of vast amount of comments and text messages we've had suggests that seems to be a good way of going, kind of stimulates some of the debates a bit more. But and we've got one or two friends who are going to be joining us as well. If you are still looking for something to watch or listen to, don't forget you've got our Sean Dyche special, which was a fascinating hour with Sean talking just about Burnley. I noticed a couple of people claiming the Harry Kane story is an exclusive. Our legal team will be on to them before long. And of course, we've got the Jimmy Mullen special. Again, big thanks to Paul Kopak and James McDonough for going down and seeing Jimmy. That is the engagement we got on that and the comments. And I know Jimmy and his wife really, really kind of taken aback by some of the comments about Jimmy and his time at Burnley. So lots and lots of content out there in your podcast feeds and here on YouTube as well. So do give us a follow at B Hall Podcast on X. And yeah, for the first time of the new Premier League season, up the Clarets.